welcome to this week of Halloween. So, from my birthday to Halloween, that's a pretty eventful week. And what we are studying this week is going to be in your Unit 7 tab, Rights of Men and the Declaration of Independence. This is actually going to be a 2-week unit. Things are a little different, so hopefully you're watching this video and paying attention. We're going to start with a little bit of a get your brain going activity. So what I have here is a picture of a B-17 bomber. Now in World War II, this was the primary bomber we used to drop bombs on Germany and the Axis countries. And we flew in the daytime so the British could fly at night, so it'd be a little safer for them. But because we're flying in the daytime, these bombers could go really far, but the fighters that would go with them to protect them could not go that far. So by the time they got over, say, Germany, there wasn't any U.S. fighters, and the Germans had lots of fighters, and a ton of these bombers got shut down. So they tried lots of things. They put guns all over them, and there was people in turrets to try and swing around and shoot at fighters. They tried different altitudes, different techniques, and eventually they decided they need to find a way to protect these bombers better because we're losing too many crews. And they did a study of where all of these bullet holes were. So that every time a bomber came back, they would make a composite. They'd figure out where it had been shot at to try and get an idea of what was causing them so much trouble. So this is a composite, which means it's hundreds, maybe thousands of B-17 bombers that came back after a mission, and they would count the bullet holes and document where they were. And after seeing this, the Allies, so America, our people, thought, well, looking at this, we've got a lot of damage here, and here, and here, and here. So we feel like we need to put more armor in these spots. That way we can protect the planes better and have more of them come home and be able to go on the next mission, and it'll just be better for our crews, better for our planes. Well, there was a person named Abraham Wald. He was a Jewish mathematician who had lived in Austria prior to the war, but he left when the Nazis came to power. And so he was now working for America. And he was a big proponent of something called survivor theory. So after he looked at all this data, the same thing we've just talked about, guess where he decided to put the armor on this plane? He said we need to arm it here, around the engines and around the cockpit. Put all the extra armor there and don't worry about the rest of it. And everybody was befuddled. They were like, hey, why would we do that? What is the point of that? This is where all the damage is happening. But what he suggested is that there was a bias and that they were only looking at the planes that survived. Because the planes that mattered most for this kind of study were the ones that actually got shot down. And we didn't have the data on those because they mostly got shot down over Germany. So if you think about it, if a plane gets hit in an engine or gets hit in the cockpit, it probably ends up like this, crashed. So there's no data to collect. Just an interesting, thought-provoking thing, and another reason why you can tell Mr. O that I said something about math today and history. Okay, we're going to do an exercise today. I'm going to demonstrate it first. So I want you to watch what I do, and then you're going to have a chance to go ahead and do it too. But I want to give you an example first. So what we're going to do is this. I'm going to go over a historical quote. Okay, we're going to have to find out who said it, when, what is it in, if it's in a book or some kind of writing, and then we're going to have to summarize it. So here's our first one. Okay, we've got a quote. In future, no official shall place a man on trial upon his own unsupported statement, without producing credible witnesses to the truth of it. No free man shall be seized or imprisoned, or stripped of his rights or possessions, or outlawed or exiled, or deprived of his standing in any way. Nor will we proceed with force against him, or send others to do so, except by the lawful judgment of his equals, or by the law of the land. To no one will we sell, to no one deny or delay right or justice. So there's a quote. It sounds pretty important. The first part's maybe the easiest part. How are we going to look up where that is? So There's some ways to do that. The easiest would be this, right? Let's just copy it. All right? And then we can open up a Google tab. We can paste that whole thing in there and just hit enter. Okay, so here I've got the quote. It says everything it says. I'm just going to go over to here. The English translation of the Magna Carta. And this is a little off because of the amount of the screen I have. So I've got the Magna Carta. Technically it's Magna Carta. It's not the Magna Carta. Anyway, written in 1215. I'm looking through the rest of this to see who wrote it. Now I know you can't quite see it all here, but it's King John of England. So you can't see the king, but by the grace of God, King of England, it's King John. If you could see my whole screen, you would. So I've got King John of England wrote this in 1215. So that is who, what, and when. And if I'm going to summarize that, which I've already done, so I'm just going to show you the next slide, I would summarize that by saying, no witness, no crime. So here, no man on trial on his own unsupported statement, which means without a witness, without prodding witnesses to the truth thereof, and we're not going to take his stuff. So if there's not a witness, there can't be a crime. And then that whole bottom part basically says the government can't take your stuff without a legal reason or a jury trial. Now, a lot of times when we summarize, we're going to want to do that using professional language. But for today, I just want it to be very simple. I want to make sure you understand what we're talking about. So we just want to simplify these things into a sentence or two, just bullet points. What is it actually saying? What's the meat of it? So now you're going to try. There are 6 documents. And in class, we would break up into groups. And everybody would do one of these documents, search and figure out who said it, when they said it, what it's about, and talk about the summary of it. Now, if you're watching this, it means you're at home, and you're not going to be able to have that interaction. You're going to have to go ahead and look at all 6 of them, because they all matter. All of these documents have to do with building the philosophies that became the Declaration of Independence. So that's all kind of important stuff. I'm just kind of breezing through the documents. You can see they're all quotations. They're all written by different people. These are all written in different times, but there are some common threads, and that's really what we're trying to get you to look at. So you're going to go through all of those, and you can see them right on the PowerPoint. Come up with a summary, who wrote it, and when it was written, because some of that is going to be on the test for this unit. And when you are done, you're going to fill out this personal social contract page. And you can fill this one in and just rewrite it on Google Doc or send it back to me as a Google Doc. You probably don't want to send the entire PowerPoint back to me because I'll have to look through all the slides just to find this. But there's 4 questions. 1, identify and explain what a social contract is in your life right now. And I guarantee you, even though you're a kid, you're involved in probably at least 3 social contracts. And depending on what you do, it might be a lot more than that. The answers to what a social contract is going to be found in those other studies we just did, those other documents. 1B, the second part of question 1, is how would you know if that contract was broken? You could break the contract, or the other people you have it with could break it. How would you know what that looked like? How would you be able to tell? The next one there, oh dear, I hit the wrong button, is describe a social contract you expect to enter into in the future. I want you to think to when you're an adult. What might you be doing as an adult that would be considered a social contract? I want a specific example. And then again, how would you know if that contract was broken or not? So I'm going to ask you to apply this idea of a social contract to your life right now, to look and identify for that. And then to analyze how could you tell if that was broken. And then I'm asking you to make a hypothesis or to look into the future and see how this idea of a social conflict could affect you, and most likely will, when you're older. All right, so we're using some deep thinking skills as part of that. It's a little bit of a rigor task to jog your brain. That's why we talked about the airplanes, to get your brain up and going. All right, I want to take another look at everything else going on this week. So if I look right here, I know usually I do this whole thing on the start page. Here's what we're doing this week. Aside from this lesson, which we've already done, that's the gist of it. You are going to, you know what? I'll make a separate video just about that part. So, yeah. Great.